When playing through a Xenoblade game, we typically tend to notice the larger, more noticeable aspects of the adventure, such as the vast open landscapes or the thrilling, blood-pumping combat. Even so, I personally find that it's the subtle details that really brings the world and games together, elevating the overall experience onto a complete another level, and providing me with a feeling like no other. That's why today, I will be showing off 10 hidden parts of Xenoblade 3 that gives me that same tingly feeling in game. So let's jump right into the video. To start off this list, it's only fitting that we begin with something from the prologue. I'm sure you're all familiar with how Uriah gets obliterated at the start of Xenoblade 3, which is then followed shortly afterwards with a few more smaller annihilation events until the game transitions into the battle between Colony 9 and Colony Sigma, starting the video game. But did you know that you can actually revisit this particular rock in-game? By standing in the correct place in either Everblight or Yazana Plains, you can see what remains of this rock from that cutscene, showing that annihilation events are never far away from a soldier's life within Ionios. If you want to get a closer look, however, try jumping off from Capricorn Peak and making your way down to it, but don't be too surprised when you fall straight through it due to the lack of any collision. I'm guessing Monolith never thought we'd actually be able to reach this rock, eh? If you were hyper aware when first playing this game, you might have noticed a prompt over Guernica Van Damme's remains. Triggering this action plays a short cutscene where Uni is grateful for learning Van Damme's name after he freed herself and others from the Flame Clock's clutches, whilst also serving as a nice way to commemorate the Van Damme of Xenoblade 3. There's only a brief period of time when this cutscene can be triggered, disappearing as early as the next chapter, but even so, there are actually still two variants of it. The differences, however, are incredibly minor, only including or excluding the Agnians from the cutscene, but regardless, it's still a nice little detail that many might.
Are these his dog tags?
Guernica Van Damme. I guess that's his name.
That's great.
Huh?
I kinda hated the idea of not even knowing who he was.
Right, yeah. Let's remember him as the man who gave us a goal and the ability to choose.
Yeah.
After literally just mentioning them, I'm sure you're all aware of the purposes and powers of the flame clocks in Xenoblade 3. Of course, they're designed to link each soldier to it via their irises, allowing the motes of life to be absorbed and stored within to feed the Mobius, but they also served another purpose. Flame clocks have the weird ability of being able to suppress the awareness of those attached to it, making every soldier oblivious to the truth and the natural order. Needless to say, this would make nobody question the fact that Nopon and every other living creature in Ionios actually, well, grow up. But on top of that, it also prevented any sexual desires for the opposite gender. Whilst Lance and Noah are connected to their flame clock, they don't bat an eye at the fact that they're bathing with Uni, a girl. But after being freed and noticing the sexual tension behind them, all three lads run away for shelter from the prying eyes of the ladies, due to what we all simply know as common sense and embarrassment. It's referenced a few times throughout the game in different ways, so make sure to keep an eye out for it whenever it happens. If I was to ask you how many eyes each of the Ouroboros had, you'd probably say 2, right? I mean, we see 2 on every one of them, with the exception of Uni, which probably has 8 eyes, just like a spider. Well, turns out you'd actually be wrong, as any interlinked being actually has 4 eyes, 2 from either half of the interlink. Obviously, the 2 main ones on the front of the head are controlled separately by each of the interlinkees, but the other 2 are actually what we can see on the side of each Ouroboros' head. Each of these eyes contain the Ouroboros symbol within, due to them actually being the eyes which contain their irises, confirmed by the fact that Noah is on the right hand side, whereas Mio is on the left.
Who is he talking to? No idea.
But
This is even confirmed as much, with the art book making it clear as day that this is the same symbol, and even applies to the interlinked Mobius as well, presumably through this little thing we see here. Monolith Soft made the interesting decision in this game to show how much time left a person had through a tattoo located somewhere on their body. For most, the location is pretty obvious, with them being clearly visible, like Lanza's on his chin and Mio's on her neck. Even most of the heroes' ones are pretty easy to spot, like Valdi's left arm, Juniper's right thigh, and even Ethel's on her boobies. Of course, many are completely obscured as well, hiding their true age from us all if not for the affinity chart. That said, thanks to the art book, we know the location of another one of these symbols on a character we don't usually get to see. Sagiri. Turns out that Sagiri's tattoo is smack bang on her forehead, normally being obscured by her hair. I really like this detail, as the members of Colony Zero always felt a bit different to the rest of the inhabitants of Ionios, but this subtle detail does help to make them feel like they are a part of this world. After liberating each and every colony, you tend to learn that there are some very interesting dynamics and interactions between many of the different settlements within Ionios. One of my favourites surrounds the drama between Colony Iota and Colony 30, which is explored in a number of different side quests. For those unaware, Colony Iota, who were renowned for their strength and tactics in battle, were once annihilated by Colony 30 in a skirmish, leaving many, including Alexandria, wary of said colony and its commander. Eventually, for the purposes of Alex's ascension quest, both colonies arranged a tech convention in which they hoped to lay their grudges to rest. After the collaboration between both colonies, you can speak to Uzette, who sheds a bit of light about what actually unfolded on the battleground. As it turns out, Valdi and the other Nopper mechanics modified some Levnesses which caused them to go berserk and wipe out the entirety of Colony Iota's front line, meaning that in the end, it was actually all an accident. So one thing I expected to see a lot more of was references to the older characters from the previous Xenoblade games. Obviously, I'm sure that most of you are already aware that both Poppy and Shulk were referenced in the epilogue, along with the obvious queens, but there are actually two more characters who were paid homage to. From Xenoblade 1, Ricky was referenced in the lower Mac the Wildwood, with his biter resting on what can only be described as a grave, providing us with some closure on what happened to the hero pawn. On the other hand, Dromark was also paid tribute via a statue of his head being located within the Cloud Cube. It's located just above this doorway and provides at least some security that Dromark is still looking over his lady. Romance has always been a prominent part of the Xenoblade games, even if the older ones took the definition of romance a little differently.
Nia, I love you too. I love you and all you guys.
Even so, I find that Xenoblade 3's use of romance is the best in the series, partially due to it not being limited to just the main story, with the quest line of Romero and Julieta being a fantastic example. Other than the obvious reference to Shakespeare, these two lovebirds actually throw back to Xenoblade 1, where Romero talks about an old Noppon custom of jumping off of a high up location to gain approval for one's marriage. The tradition originates from a quest in Xenoblade 1, where the male Noppon would jump off from up high in Frontier Village into a pond of water below, displaying his courage and manliness to his partner, whom he wished to wed. However, it doesn't appear that the detail of a safe landing was made clear to Romero, meaning he was likely about to plummet to his death. Yikes. Phoroneses are the real powerhouse behind each and all of the colonies, but they become useless once their flame clock is cut in two. This obviously makes sense, as we were basically severing the power source for the machine altogether, providing us with a bit of context for the reason that none of the colonies moved around at all, other than being stationary for convenient gameplay reasons. That said, there is one colony that moves once more after having its flame clock split in two, and that is actually Colony 4 in the end sequence of the game. Now, if you're like me, you probably never even noticed that anything was out of the ordinary, but thinking about it, this is a little weird. Well, it turns out that through a side quest line with Yamiya in Colony 4, we learn of a potential technology which would allow the Phoronesis to be powered once more, without the use of its flame clock. Therefore, it is likely to assume that this quest is canon, whether you completed it or not, and serves as a way of explaining how and why this Phoronis was able to join the fight once more. Now, depending on when you are watching this video, the reasoning for this detail being hidden might be slightly different. With update 1.2.0, a particular cutscene was updated to use a different sword model for N. Originally, before the update, N would sit in front of his variant of Lucky 7, whereas after the update, the model was changed to be N's Sword of the End. If you've been following along with some of my other videos, you'd have known that this sword was randomly used in a cutscene following, and it came out of nowhere. With the update, it still comes out of nowhere, but it at least fits the continuity of events better than before, so at least that's an improvement. And those were 10 hidden things in Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Let me know in the comments if there is anything I missed in this video, or any subtle details that you found in your own game, and I might even make a few follow-up videos to this one. With all that said and done, I appreciate you all for taking your time to watch this video till the end. If you have enjoyed, I'd appreciate it if you'd click that subscribe button and notification bell, as I'm aiming for 10,000 subs by the end of the year, and it would mean the world to me if you'd help make that happen. I once more thank you for watching and hope to catch you in the next one. This is JB, signing off.